A Toledo intersection crumbles, leaving behind a huge hole. The collapse just moments away from a potential tragedy.
We had two cars actually cross this intersection. Both barely made it across the hole before it collapsed in.
Right now, the road is closed. Neighbors boiling their water. And the city working to make sure it doesn't happen again.
We need to look at the infrastructure. We need to look at the underlying system that's in place to make sure that no one gets hurt.
The collapse just blocks away from another massive sinkhole 6 years ago. The road opened up, swallowing a car just about 8 blocks away.
The age of our system is definitely significantly old.
I think that we have our job, our work cut out for us.
Live from Toledo, this is 1380C Action News.
And we are learning new information about that massive sinkhole that opened up on a Toledo road.
First told you about it last night on Action News at 11, and today it's raising some questions, a lot of questions about the city's aging infrastructure. The crater opened up late last night near the corner of North Detroit and Fernwood. It's about 15 by 20 feet deep and 30 feet deep. City says 2 brick sewer mains dating back to the 1800s connect at that intersection. One of the lines broke and water poured out. That washed away stone, clogging the sewer line. Eventually, another water main also collapsed, bringing down the road with it.
And now the challenge is making the repairs and taking a closer look at those lines to make sure that this doesn't happen again. 13 ABC's Amy Montgomery live with more on the city's plan. Amy.
Diane, crews have gone home for the day, wrapping up hours of work here along Detroit Avenue. You can see they do have the area very well roped off. They have that sinkhole surrounded by fencing, but what they were doing today was clearing that water main so that they could get in there and make the repair. And then the plan was to take a closer look at all of the pipes under Detroit Avenue. This busy stretch of Detroit Avenue was at a standstill. The culprit is just behind the caution tape. A massive sinkhole.
It probably grew very quickly, very fast with that much water flowing out of an 8-inch water main.
The Division of Engineering Services has had crews working on repairs for hours. Administrator Doug Stevens says it was likely set in motion by a slow leak over a long period of time.
When the water main broke sometime yesterday, it started throwing a lot of water into the ground, shoving, stone and dirt into the sewer, plugging up the sewer, and creating a larger sinkhole.
Eventually, the pavement gave way, leaving behind a mess and a major repair project. Stevens says part of that will include looking for other potential issues in the system, especially since this is the second significant sinkhole on Detroit in the last 6 years.
We're going to pretty much take that stretch of sewer, evaluate it, and see if we can't do a near future lining project if possible to put a liner in and give structural integrity to that sewer and stop the sinkholes.
I think that we have our job, our work cut out for us.
The work is happening in Councilman Tyrone Riley's district. He's calling for an investigation into the system from Dorr to Monroe Street and says it's important for the city to talk prevention.
We need to look at the infrastructure. We need to look at the underlying system that's in place to make sure that no one gets hurt and that this type of problem doesn't exist in the future.
And despite the aging system and obvious problems, Stevens says overall it's in fair condition. But he's quick to point out that the need for updates is there, and so is the search for funding.
And we're looking to figure out a way to have a more robust capital program to do lining and other measures that'll improve our system for 50 years or more.
And soon, engineering crews will actually be putting a camera down into the pipes to see whether they can identify any additional problems and then make those repairs from there. In the meantime, this portion here of Detroit Avenue will likely remain closed to traffic for at least another week. Diane?
Amy, thank you. And there were 2 cars that were slightly damaged as they ran over the initial hole, but again, nobody was hurt. The city said it could take weeks to fix the problem, and until then, Detroit Avenue will be closed between Norwood Avenue and Palmwood. There's a detour in place. It takes drivers from Dorr Street to Collingwood Boulevard to Monroe Street.
And city crews will be repairing the water system this week, and that means there's a boil advisory in effect for people living in the area. Now, but just 22 customers are affected. The advisory includes anyone living on Fernwood Avenue from Detroit to Bell. Those people need to boil any water used for consumption, including brushing their teeth and washing the dishes. This order will remain in place until at least 5 p.m. on Friday the 26th. After that, residents can go back to using the water as normal. And stay with 13 ABC. We continue to track the progress of the fix for this huge sinkhole. We've got all the information posted online at 13abc.com and our 13 ABC News app.
We have some breaking.
It's not business as usual. My parents have been here too many times for me to know.
Hundreds of hospital workers still on strike, but is this walkout affecting patient care?
Plus, an investigation into a local school district. The I-team digging into documents, working to find out why a reading program is under review.
And a second suspect arrested in connection with a Toledo woman's death. What we're learning about her murder.
This is 13 ABC Action News.
Day 2 on the picket line for hundreds of local hospital workers.
Union members in Mercy Health St. Vincent Medical Center are at odds over a contract.
And today, still no sign of a resolution. Once again, we have full team coverage of the strike, getting both sides of the story. 13 ABC's Mackenzie Keyline checking in with Mercy Health officials to see how things are operating.
But we start with 13 ABC's Amy Montgomery, who joins us live from the picket line. Amy?
Diane Lee, we're here. As you mentioned, this is day 2. Still a very active picket line here in front of St. V's. People getting a lot of support. You see some of the workers behind me. We have a lot of them here. These are all nurses, service employees, and technical staff. They are working to reach a deal with Mercy Health. Many of these workers have been working on getting their ducks in a row so that they can be in this for the long haul. Take a look at some of this video. This was inside of the UAW Local 12 this morning. Mercy employees were coming in, filling out paperwork so that they could get their health benefits while that contract is still up in the air. Union leadership tells us that they haven't heard from hospital management since before the strike, as those weekend negotiations broke down. And while these workers say it's hard to be on the picket line instead of in there with their patients, they're adamant that they had no other choice. And today, other labor unions have thrown their support behind Local 2213 as they work to get a deal.
We are employees kind of working for a common goal, us on the front lines, and of course the nurses and all the rest of the support units in the hospitals that continue that care that we start. We absolutely do work hand in hand, and it only goes, the better patient outcomes is when we do work that way.
And as we mentioned, there's still no word on when the two sides could meet again. They had negotiations this weekend, but those fell through, leading to what you're seeing here along Cherry Street. Reporting live, Amy Montgomery, 13 ABC Action News.
And this walkout coming after months of disagreement between both parties. Now here's how it all happened. Contract negotiations with Mercy Health been ongoing since July 30th of last year. On April 18th of this year, UAW members rejected what the company called its last, best, and final offer. The existing contract finally expired April 25th after several extensions. The next day, the union gave its 10-day strike notice, and that brought us to yesterday when 2,200 people walked off the job.
Mercy Health leaders say they are operating as normal, and during a news conference today, patient care was at the forefront. 13 ABC's Mackenzie Keyline joins us live to break down exactly how the hospital is trying to manage during the strike. Mackenzie.
Well, Diane, Mercy Health leaders say they understand the concerns that patients and their families have regarding care during the strike, but they stress that things are running smoothly despite having 2,200 of their employees out on the picket lines here. Now, during a press conference earlier today, the hospital's chief of staff says that the emergency room is seeing the same number of patients that they do on a typical day, and that the intensive care unit is open and still taking critically ill patients. Now, they did have to rearrange some procedures, reschedule surgeries, and transfer some of their patients, but they say they did this simply as a precaution to make sure that they have all the resources that their patients need. The hospital has also added some nurses and other staff from their sister facilities, including those in food service, to temporarily fill in.
They're highly, highly skilled. They are credentialed. They have ACLS and all those acronyms that nurses have, and they're highly certified and competent. Like Dr. Tita noted this morning, he was very impressed with the competent care that our patients are receiving, and they deserve to receive.
Now, one thing Mercy Health leaders say has been disruptive. In fact, you can probably hear it out here, the honks from vehicles passing by and the chants. They say that their patients that are ill and recovering, along with families that may be grieving the loss of a loved one, are having to deal with all of this commotion out here. Lee and Diane.
All right, Mackenzie, thanks. And as this situation continues to unfold, stick with 13 ABC for updates. And when new information comes out, we'll be sure to bring it to you on air and online on 13abc.com and our social media pages. Weather now, east winds brought some cold weather to the area today, but of course we're looking ahead to tomorrow and the next day and the next day.
Absolutely. It never, what's the saying? Never trust an east wind, right? Chief Meteorologist Jay.
All types of wires, telephone wires, electric wires.
Damage widespread in Ohio and Michigan tonight, the aftermath of a sunny skied windswept event. And now a lot of cleaning up to do. Tree damage, property problems, and other issues. The end result, thousands of people without power, hundreds of thousands of people without power north of the border tonight.
From WTVG Toledo, this is 13 ABC Action News with Diane Larson and Lee Conklin.
And as we come on the air tonight, those strong winds are beginning to die down, but not before leaving a trail of damage and thousands of people without power. We're going to talk with Chief Meteorologist Jay Burschback in just a few minutes, but first, truly some amazing images coming into our newsroom from across the Midwest. The strong winds today, no match for trucks on the freeways, pushing them over like they were virtually nothing here. And watch this image, traffic cam, catching a gust slamming down a semi in the middle of I-75. And not just the road, structures taking the hit too, with gale and tropical storm force wind gusts literally peeling back the bricks on a South Toledo apartment complex. And this, about 50 miles north of Toledo, a close call for the University of Michigan men's basketball team. Their charter plane trying to take off from the Willow Run Airport, headed for Washington in the Big Ten tournament, forced to abort, the passenger jet skidding off the runway. Thankfully, no one hurt there. We are beginning our newscast tonight with team coverage. Our Bridget Burnett was in the middle of it all. She's standing by live with the latest tonight. Bridget.
A wild day today, and these bricks used to be on the side of this apartment building.
How much is a little girl worth?
Victim.
You were meant to be locked up for the rest of your life.
After victim.
I have never wanted to hate someone in my life, but my hate towards you was uncontrollable. Larry Nassar, I hate you.
Their voices heard loud across the country. Dr. Larry Nassar of Michigan admitted to sexually assaulting 7 girls. Dozens and dozens more spoke out as the country watched and listened to the brave victims.
We have seen the worst of humanity and the best in these past few days.
The disgraced doctor sentenced to decades behind bars.
And you survived the 60 years in federal court first, and then you started my 40 years? Sir, I'm giving you 175 years. I've just signed your death warrant.
This is 13 ABC Action News with Diane Larson and Lee Conklin.
And after 7 days of testimony and victims sharing their stories, a judge sentenced that Michigan doctor to 40 to 175 years in prison for molesting girls.
Larry Nassar admitted to sexually assaulting 7 victims, but the judge allowed anyone with accusations against him to speak out. Then she sentenced him to that 175-year term, and she says to send a message to the parole board.
I-Team reporter Sean Haggerty is following these breaking developments in this disturbing case. Sean.
Yeah, Lee and Diane, Nassar heard from more than 100.
Bullies don't always win. Vote yes on issue 2.
Live from Toledo, this is 13 ABC Action News.
Well, you've seen the ads, but how will you vote on issue 2? Good evening and welcome to Action News at 5:30. I'm Christian Brown.
And I'm Lee Conklin. Issue 2 claims to save hundreds of millions of dollars with cheaper prescription drug prices. Question is it really true? Our Bill Horman on the story did some digging and has some answers tonight. Bill.
Yeah, Lee and Christian, the two sides on this issue.
So was there any good news for the supporters of issue 2 in the state's report?
Well, there was a little bit of good news there, Christian. The OBM says that there actually could be a little bit of savings, but that's only if the drug companies agree not to raise their prices, and of course that's never a guarantee. And OBM couldn't really estimate any potential savings because they're not sure how the drug companies are going to respond if they're forced to lower some of their drug costs. Now, you can read this report. I've posted online, linked it to this story on 13abc.com. Read it for yourself. This is a big issue. We're all going to have to vote on it next week.
All right. Thank you so much, Bill Harmon.
Sean, thank you. Well, the grades are in. The State Department of Education releasing its report cards.
The grading system ranks districts from A to F on several categories. So how did your child's school do? Let's take a look at a few of the local districts. We're going to focus on 2 of the state indicators that were released.
The achievement grade rates how much students show they know on the state tests, and the progress grade rates just how much students gain from year to year. Let's start with Anthony Wayne, going alphabetical order here. Anthony Wayne, achievement B, progress a B as well. So B's across the board for AW. Bowling Green, achievement a D, but the progress is an A. In the Oregon local schools, achievement a D, the progress a C. Ottawa Hills, achievement A, progress an A as well.
Now in Perrysburg, achievement was B, progress was A. Sylvania, achievement C, progress A. Toledo Public Schools, achievement F, progress D. And of course, there are many more districts. We don't have the time to name all of them, but they will be scrolling at the bottom of your screen.
And tonight we do have team coverage of this year's state report cards. We begin with our Melissa Vatres. Reaction from TPS tonight. Melissa.
Well, Lee and Diane, Toledo Public Schools continues to literally push a boulder up a hill on its test scores, getting an F on achievement and a D on progress. Now, a couple of things about Toledo's score. They flat out deal with a largely